All right, so looks like we're diving into the world of PPE today.
Yeah, lots to unpack here.
You bet. We've got a mountain of research here, all about personal protective equipment, and it looks like someone wants to become a PPE pro.
Definitely an important topic. PPE is so crucial for staying safe in all sorts of situations.
You know, a lot of people, I think, when they hear PPE, they just picture a construction worker in a hard hat. But I'm getting the sense from all this research that it's so much more than that, right?
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, a hard hat is definitely PPE, don't get me wrong, but it's really anything you wear to minimize risk.
Right. So, like, what else are we talking about? Give me some examples, like beyond the construction site.
Okay, well, let's see. Think about lab coats for scientists. They're handling dangerous chemicals, so that lab coat is their protection.
Oh, okay. Yeah, that makes sense.
Right. Or think about those harnesses that people wear when they're working high up on, like wind turbines or something. That's PPE, keeping them safe. It's about creating a barrier between you and whatever the hazard is.
So it's really about understanding the risks in your specific environment.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you don't want to just be checking a box. You need to really get into the nitty-gritty of what could potentially hurt you
Yeah.
and then choose the right gear.
Hmm. Okay, that makes sense. But how do you even know where to start? I mean, there's so many different types of PPE.
That's true.
Yeah.
Yeah, there is a ton of variety, and it really depends, like we were saying, on the specific hazards that you're facing.
Right.
So let's break it down a little bit, maybe starting at the top, literally, with head protection.
All right. Head protection.
So we've got the classic hard hat,
Yep. Everyone knows the hard hat.
right, that's designed to protect you from falling objects. Pretty straightforward.
Makes sense.
But then there's also something called a bump cap, which a lot of people aren't familiar with.
A bump cap. Okay, now that's a new one for me. What is that? Is it like I'm picturing like a baseball cap but with extra padding?
Well, yeah,
Uh-huh.
you're on the right track. So bump caps are, they're a lot lighter than hard hats, and they're really for protecting against, well, bumps. You know, if you're working in a space with low ceilings
Mm.
or like protruding equipment, you might not need a full hard hat, but a bump cap can still prevent a pretty nasty head injury.
So it's about choosing the right level of protection, basically.
Exactly.
Okay, bump caps. Interesting. Now, what about eyes and face?
Right. Well, eye protection, super important. So basic safety glasses, I mean, those are a must-have, right? They're going to protect your eyes from, well, anything flying around,
Yeah.
debris, dust, even chemical splashes.
Yeah, safety glasses, those are pretty standard in a lot of workplaces, but I'm also thinking like goggles. What's the difference between like safety glasses and goggles?
Good question. So goggles offer a much tighter seal around your eyes. So if you're working with like liquids or really fine dust, they give you that extra layer of protection that you might not get with just regular safety glasses.
Okay.
And then, of course, if you need even more coverage, you got your face shields.
Right, right, the ones that cover your whole face.
Yeah, exactly, like what a dentist would wear.
Uh-huh.
Those are essential for tasks like welding or if you're working with hazardous chemicals and need full face protection.
It's really interesting how the type of PPE just changes based on, the exact hazard. Right.
Oh, yeah, it's definitely not one size fits all.
Not at all.
Nope, you can't just grab anything and assume you're protected.
Okay, well, we've covered the head, we've covered the eyes and face. What about our ears? Hearing protection.
Right. So that's another big one because, loud noise, even if it doesn't seem that loud at first, if you're exposed to it for a long time, that can lead to some serious hearing damage.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
So you've got your earplugs, which are, the most common solution probably.
Yeah, the go-to, I guess.
Right. And those are great for reducing noise levels, especially for like intermittent loud sounds. They fit right inside your ear canal.
They're pretty discreet, too.
Oh, yeah, they are. But then, of course, you've also got those big earmuffs that cover your whole ear.
Right. Right. When would you need those as opposed to just the earplugs?
Well, earmuffs are really ideal for when you're exposed to like continuous, really loud noise, like what you might find in a factory
Mm.
or, on a construction site. They just provide a higher level of noise reduction,
Oh, okay.
and they can be more comfortable for, if you're wearing them for a long time.
Yeah, it's like choosing the right headphones, but for safety.
Exactly.
Okay. So we've taken care of our heads, our eyes and face, our ears. What about our lungs?
Oh, respiratory protection.
Right. I mean, masks are kind of everywhere these days, right? But I'm guessing that's just the tip of the iceberg.
Yeah, it is. I mean, a simple cloth mask that might filter out some dust or pollen, but it's not going to protect you from from harmful gases or vapors or, really fine particles, that's where you need a respirator.
Okay, so what makes a respirator different?
So respirators, they have filters that are specifically designed to remove certain hazards from the air you're breathing.
Okay.
So we're talking about dust, fumes, asbestos, even viruses.
Wow. Okay, so respirators are serious business.
They are, yeah. Choosing the right respiratory protection, that can be a matter of life or death.
Yeah, no kidding. All right, so moving down the body, how about our hands? I feel like there is a different type of glove for every job imaginable.
There pretty much is, yeah. You've got gloves for cuts, abrasions, chemicals, heat, cold, you name it.
Yeah, how do you even know like which glove is right? They all kind of look the same to me.
Yeah, that's where you need a good understanding of what you're dealing with, like what are the hazards. For example, if you're handling chemicals, you need a glove that's made from a material that's specifically resistant to that chemical.
Oh,
Because if you use the wrong gloves, you could end up with like serious skin burns or even absorb the chemical into your bloodstream.
so it's not just about like picking up a random pair of gloves off the shelf.
Nope, you got to know what you're doing.
You really have to understand like the science behind the materials, make sure it's actually going to protect you.
And it's not just about the material itself either. It's the thickness of the glove, the length of the cuff, even how much dexterity it offers. It all plays a role.
Wow, so much to think about just with gloves.
Yeah, there's more to it than meets the eye, literally. And then sometimes, you might need more than just gloves. Like you might need a barrier cream to protect your skin from irritants, or maybe even specialized tools to avoid direct contact with the hazardous stuff.
It's like a whole system,
Right, it is.
not just like throw on a pair of gloves and call it a day.
Right, exactly.
Okay, so moving on from hands, what about the rest of the body? I mean, I'm picturing those full body hazmat suits, but what about more everyday situations?
Well, even something as simple as an apron can be considered PPE. Think about people working in kitchens or labs where spills and splashes are common. An apron's going to protect their clothes and their skin from, coming into contact with whatever that substance is.
Oh, yeah. Okay, that makes sense.
Right. And then you've got coveralls, which offer like more complete body protection. They're commonly used in industrial settings where workers might be exposed to dust, dirt, all that stuff.
Okay. So again, it's just about like choosing the right level of protection for whatever you're dealing with.
Exactly.
And last but not least, I guess we've got to talk about our feet, right?
Right. The foundation of it all.
Yeah, I'm picturing those steel-toed boots, like construction workers wear. But I'm guessing there's more to it than just that.
Oh, yeah. Steel-toed boots, those are great for protecting your toes from falling objects or heavy equipment.
Yeah.
But there are also safety shoes that are designed for other hazards.
Like what else is there?
Well, slip-resistant soles are really important if you're working in environments where there might be spills or, just wet surfaces.
Yeah.
And then you've got shoes that are designed to protect against electrical hazards or punctures or even extreme temperatures.
Wow. It's amazing how much variety there is just in safety footwear.
It is, right?
But who decides like what kind of foot protection you need for a certain job?
Well, that's where the regulations come in. So you've got organizations like OSHA, that's the Occupational Safety and Health Administration here in the U.S.
Right, OSHA.
Yeah, and then there are similar organizations in other countries. They basically set the standards for workplace safety, and that includes specific requirements for PPE.
So they're the ones who say, like, okay, if you're doing this job, you need this specific type of shoe and that kind of thing.
Yeah, basically.
Oh.
They do a lot of research, they analyze data, and they develop guidelines based on, industry best practices and scientific evidence, all to make sure that workers are protected from any known hazards.
So it's not just like a random set of rules. It's actually based on, real science and data.
It is, yeah. And it's, these regulations are constantly evolving, too.
Oh, wow.
As, like, new hazards are identified or, new technologies emerge.
That makes sense because things are always changing.
Exactly.
But how do those regulations, like, actually work in practice? Does someone come and, like, inspect workplaces to make sure everyone's following the rules?
They do, yeah. So OSHA and similar organizations, they have inspectors who go out and visit workplaces to make sure that everyone's complying with the safety standards. That includes making sure people are using PPE correctly.
Okay.
And if they find violations, they can issue citations, fines, and in some cases, they can even shut down operations if there are serious safety concerns.
So there are real consequences for not taking PPE seriously.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, this is not just a suggestion.
It's
It's the law.
It's the law. All right. Well, I think our listener is already starting to see that PPE it's a whole world unto itself.
It is. We've only just scratched the surface here.
We have. So we'll be back in part 2 to dive even deeper into the world of PPE. We'll be exploring the training, the maintenance, and even the ethics of all this essential safety gear.
That's right. Lots more to come.
Welcome back to our deep dive on Peak C. So, we've talked about all these different types of gear, but I'm thinking, like, what good is all this equipment if people don't even know how to use it properly?
That's a really, really good point. I mean, you can have the most high-tech PPE in the world, but if it's not worn correctly, if it hasn't been maintained, or if you didn't pick the right PPE for the hazard in the first place, then it's not going to do its job.
Right. It's not just about having the gear. It's about, like, knowing how to actually use it effectively.
Exactly. And that's where training comes
So
in.
training is super important.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah.
A good PPE training program, it always starts with um, a really thorough hazard assessment.
Mm-hmm.
So you need to know, like, what are the specific risks that are present in that work environment before you can even start thinking about what equipment people need.
Okay, yeah, that makes sense. Because, like we've been talking about, there's so many different types of PPE,
Yeah.
and each one is designed for a specific purpose. So you can't just, like, have a one-size-fits-all approach.
Nope, not at all.
You really need to, like, tailor it to this situation.
Right. It's like putting together a puzzle.
Oh, yeah.
You got to make sure all the pieces fit together and they provide that that right level of protection.
Hmm.
So once you've identified those hazards, then you can start thinking about, okay, what's the appropriate PPE for each task?
Right.
And that involves thinking about, the level of protection that's required, the comfort and fit of the equipment,
Uh-huh.
even, will it work with other PPE that they might need to wear at the same time?
Right, like compatibility.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay.
And then once you've actually selected the PPE, then the training really begins.
All right, so what does that look like?
So workers need to understand not just how to wear the equipment and adjust it correctly, but also how to inspect it, make sure there's no damage,
Mm-hmm.
and then how to take care of it so it lasts.
Oh, okay. So it's like the whole life cycle of the equipment.
Yeah, exactly. And I think hands-on training is really, really important here. It's one thing to read about how to put on a respirator, but it's another thing to actually do it and make sure you're getting a good seal.
Right, right.
So that hands-on element is really crucial.
Yeah, it makes sense. It gives you that, like, muscle memory.
Yeah, it does. And it also helps people feel more confident and comfortable using their PPE. Like, they get to practice putting it on, taking it off, adjusting it, trying to do their work while they're wearing it.
Right, right. And it's not just about the individual worker either, right? It's about the whole workplace.
Yeah, it is. So training plays a really big role in building what's called a culture of safety.
A culture of safety. Okay.
Yeah, so when everyone understands how important PPE is and everyone's committed to using it properly, well, then it creates a safer work environment for everybody.
Yeah, it's like a team effort.
It is.
And
It's everyone looking out for each other.
yeah, that's a good way to put it.
And that goes beyond just wearing the equipment, too. Like, it's about being willing to speak up. If you see someone not using PPE correctly, or if you notice a potential hazard.
Right. So you're not just following the rules, you're like actively participating in creating that culture.
Exactly. And that's where leadership plays a huge role, too.
Okay, how so?
Well, when managers and supervisors, when they prioritize safety and lead by example,
Right.
that sets the tone for the entire organization.
So it's about walking the walk, not just talking the talk.
You got it. Actions speak louder than words, especially when it comes to safety.
Well said. Now, we've been talking a lot about the practical side of PPE training, but there's also like an ethical dimension to all of this, right?
There is, yeah. Using PPE properly, it's not just about protecting yourself. It's also about protecting the people around you. Think about it this way. If you've got a healthcare worker who's not wearing their gloves or their mask correctly, well, they could potentially spread an infection to their patients.
Oh, yeah.
And that's just one example.
It's a powerful example, though.
It is. It shows how, our choices our inaction when it comes to PCE, how that can have, consequences for other people.
It's like a ripple effect, right?
Yeah.
It's your decision to, wear your PPE properly or not, it can impact your colleagues, your family, even the wider community.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Think about construction workers who are working near traffic.
Yeah.
They have to wear those high-visibility vests and hard hats.
Right?
Well, they're not just protecting themselves, they're also making themselves more visible to drivers,
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
which helps reduce the risk of accidents.
So it's like PPE becomes this symbol almost of that commitment to safety,
It does, yeah.
not just for the person wearing it, but for everyone around them.
That's a great way to put it. And
Yeah.
that visibility, it can help raise awareness about safety in general.
Oh, okay.
So
Interesting.
PPE can be, more than just protective gear.
Uh-huh.
It can actually be a tool for promoting that culture of safety, both within a specific workplace, but also in the broader community.
Okay, that's interesting. So we've talked about training, we've talked about the ethics. I'm kind of curious now about the future of PPE.
Oh, yeah, that's a good segue.
What's coming next?
Well, one area that's really taking off is smart PPE.
Smart PPE, what is that?
Okay, so think about this. These are garments or devices that have sensors and other technologies built right into them. And those sensors can enhance safety and even provide real-time feedback to the person wearing them.
Okay, that sounds pretty futuristic.
It is. It's pretty cool. So, for example, imagine a hard hat
Mm.
that has sensors in it that can detect, like, impacts
Oh.
or even monitor the wearer's fatigue levels.
Okay, so it's going beyond just the basic protection.
Yeah.
It's like gathering information almost.
It is.
Right.
Or imagine gloves that can measure your hand grip strength or give you like a little vibration to warn you if you're getting too close to a hazard.
Wow, it's like PPE is becoming like an extension of the human body.
It really is. And this technology, it has the potential to like totally revolutionize workplace safety.
In what way?
Well, imagine being able to detect a hazard before it even becomes a problem.
Right.
Or being able to monitor like everyone's fatigue levels and maybe prevent accidents before they happen.
Oh, okay.
It's not just about reacting to hazards anymore.
Uh-huh.
It's about proactively preventing them.
That's really cool.
And as this technology becomes more sophisticated and more affordable,
Right.
we can expect to see it integrated into more and more types of PPE, which is pretty exciting.
Yeah, that is exciting. But even with all this cool technology, we can't forget about the human element of safety.
You're right. Yeah, we still need to have that strong safety culture.
Right.
We need to provide good training, and we need people to take responsibility for their own safety.
Right. Technology can enhance safety, but it can't like replace human judgment and awareness.
Well said.
Yeah.
And that actually brings us to another important aspect of PPE that I think we should touch on.
Okay.
Its impact on the environment.
Oh, right. Yeah. Sustainability.
Yeah, exactly. I mean,
Yeah.
all this equipment, all these materials, it all has to come from somewhere, and it all has to go somewhere.
Yeah, true. So what kind of footprint does PPE have?
Well, the production, the use, and the disposal of PPE, it can all contribute to environmental concerns. Take disposable gloves, for instance.
Okay.
A lot of times, those are made from synthetic materials that don't break down easily. So they can sit in landfills for, like, hundreds of years.
Wow. Okay.
Yeah, it's not.
So what can we do to like minimize that impact?
Well, one thing we can do is try to prioritize reusable PPE whenever possible.
Reusable. Okay.
Yeah, so things like washable gloves, reusable respirators, hard hats that can be refurbished, that kind of thing.
Okay.
All that helps reduce waste.
So it's like that reduce, reuse, recycle mantra, but for PPE.
Exactly. And when disposable PPE is like absolutely necessary, well, then we need to make sure it's disposed of responsibly.
Right.
So that means following the proper protocols if it's hazardous materials, recycling whenever possible, and just trying to minimize waste in the first place.
So it's about making conscious choices basically throughout like the whole life cycle of the PPE,
Yeah.
from the moment you select it to the moment you gotta throw it away.
Exactly. And there's another really cool development that I think is addressing this challenge, and that's sustainable materials.
Sustainable materials for PPE.
Yeah. So we're starting to see more and more PPE that's made from recycled materials, bio-based polymers, even biodegradable components.
Oh, that's interesting.
Yeah, so for example, there are gloves now that are made from recycled plastic bottles, and there are hard hats that are made from plant-based materials.
Wow. Okay. It's like the whole eco-conscious movement is making its way into the PPE world.
It is. And that's a good thing. We need to find ways to protect ourselves and protect the planet.
Right. So it's not just about choosing the right PPE for the hazard. It's also about choosing the right PPE for the environment.
Exactly. And that's where, innovation and collaboration are so important. We need manufacturers to keep developing these sustainable options, and we need, organizations to actually choose those products when they're making their purchasing decisions.
So it's a collective effort, just like creating that culture of safety that we were talking about earlier.
Well said. And I think that that nicely sums up our deep dive into the world of PPE, at least for part 2.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have. Yeah. Lots of information to digest.
We talked about the importance of training, the ethics of protection, the future of smart PPE, and that growing focus on sustainability.
It's been a real journey.
It has.
And in part 3, we're going to wrap things up with some key takeaways and some final thoughts to leave you pondering.
Welcome back. So we've been on quite the journey, exploring the ins and outs of PPE.
Yeah, we've covered a lot of ground.
We have, from the basics to, the super high-tech stuff and even the ethics and the environmental side of things.
It's a pretty fascinating world when you really dig into it.
It is. It is. So as we wrap up this deep dive, I thought, maybe we could try to distill all this information into some key takeaways.
Sounds good. What are you thinking?
Well, for me, I think the biggest thing that I'm walking away with is that, PPE isn't just about following the rules.
Right.
It's about understanding the risks.
Yeah, that's a really important distinction. It's not about just blindly putting on some gear. It's about taking a step back and thinking, okay, what are the potential hazards here? And what do I need to do to protect myself?
And, and we've seen that it's so important to go beyond that basic that check-the-box mentality.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It's not enough to just, wear a hard hat because someone told you to. You need to understand why you're wearing it, how it works, and how to actually use it properly.
Yeah, it's about that deeper understanding.
Right.
And that's where, training comes in. It's not enough to just hand someone a piece of equipment and say, here you go, figure it out.
Exactly.
You got to teach them how to use it.
Yeah, and I really liked that point you made about hands-on training.
Oh, yeah, I think that's crucial.
Because it just makes so much sense. It's one thing to, read about how to put on a respirator, but it's a whole other thing to actually do it and, make sure you're getting a proper seal.
Right, it's that muscle memory.
Yeah.
You got to actually practice it.
Exactly. And all of that ties into, I think, this idea of creating a culture of safety where everyone feels, comfortable and empowered to speak up if something's not right.
Right. If someone's not using your PPE correctly or, if they see a potential hazard.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. And leadership plays a big role in that too, right?
A huge role.
I mean, when those at the top prioritize safety and, they actually walk the walk.
Right. They lead by example.
Yeah, it sends a strong message to everyone else.
Absolutely. It shows that they're serious about safety, that it's not just something they say they care about, but something they actually do something about.
Yeah, it's about making it a core value.
Exactly.
Not just a rule.
Right.
And all of this brings us back to the, the ethical side of PPE, which I think is something that a lot of people don't really think about.
Yeah, but it's so important. It's not just about protecting yourself. It's about protecting everyone around you.
Exactly. I mean, your choice to wear PPE correctly or not, it can literally have a ripple effect impacting your coworkers, your family, even your community.
Yeah, it's a responsibility that we all share.
And as technology continues to evolve, we're seeing all these amazing new developments in PPE.
Oh, yeah, the future is pretty exciting.
Like all that smart PPE that we were talking about.
Smart PPE, yeah. Imagine hard hats that could detect concussions or gloves that can, guide your movements.
It's like PPE is becoming like an extension of our senses almost.
It is. It's like having an extra set of eyes and, an extra layer of protection.
Yeah, that's really cool.
And it's not just about detecting hazards anymore.
Right.
It's about responding to them in real time, providing feedback, even connecting workers to a network of support.
Wow.
So, it's not just protection, it's enhancement.
Enhancements.
Yeah.
That's a good way to put it.
Making work safer and more efficient.
But of course, as we get all excited about this cool technology, we can't forget about the human side of things.
Oh, absolutely.
We still need good training. We need a strong culture of safety.
And we need people to take responsibility for their own well-being and the well-being of those around them.
Right. Technology can be a powerful tool, but it can't replace human judgment and awareness.
That's so true.
And we also can't forget about the environmental impact of all this gear.
Yeah, that's another crucial consideration.
I mean, all this equipment, it has to come from somewhere and it has to go somewhere. So, what can we do to make sure we're being responsible?
Well, I think prioritizing reusable PPE whenever possible is a big step in the right direction.
Right. Reduce, reuse, recycle.
Exactly.
And we're also seeing some really exciting developments in sustainable materials.
Yeah, we are. There are a lot of companies out there now that are creating PPE from recycled materials, plant-based polymers, even biodegradable components.
So it's becoming more and more possible to choose PPE that's not only, protective, but also good for the environment.
It is, and I think that's a really positive trend.
Yeah, absolutely. So I think we've covered a lot of really important ground here. We talked about understanding risk, the importance of training, building that culture of safety, the ethical considerations, the environmental impact, and, of course, the exciting future of PPE.
Yeah, I think those are all really key takeaways.
And I hope our listeners are walking away feeling like they've gained, new appreciation for this whole world of PPE.
I hope so, too. It's more than just hard hats and gloves.
It is. It's about protecting ourselves, protecting each other, and, protecting the planet.
And it's about staying curious, staying informed, and, most importantly, staying safe.
Couldn't have said it better myself. That's it for this deep dive into PPE. Thanks for joining us.
You've been listening to the Learning Podcast, a production of Metanesta. Remember, learning is a journey, one step, one insight, one skill at a time. We'll see you next time. Keep learning, stay curious, and as always, be awesome.